Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, we're going to be doing our next part of this podcast episode. And it looks like we're starting with why people are fat. I just have to address this really quick. It's hot in here. I don't know why, so I'm kind of a little sweaty. I look like I've been out at the club, but I haven't been, but it looks like it. It's weird. It's hot. It's humid. The air conditioning is not really turning on though because it's not quite that hot. You may understand if you live in a place with hot summers. That's all I'm going to say. So we're just going to roll with it. But apart from that, let's get into it. Okay.
That being your experience.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
Me too. In the nature of wanting to like smash these misconceptions, I would love to ask you what are some of the reasons why some people may be fat?
I love this question because, in the world of misconceptions, everyone just thinks one thing, and that is that.
Okay, the biggest thing is that you're overeating. But there are really, I would say, two major reasons why. One is some kind of mental health issue, which is all too obvious, what I would refer to as toxic ritualistic behavior. Why do I call it that? Because YouTube doesn't want me to say what it really is, for one. And for two, it is toxic. It's ritualistic. It's repetitive. When you're in that E followed by a D, it's repetitive, like a ritual. You do it over and over again, and the same thing happens over and over again. It's like Groundhog Day. And it's behavior because the final piece is it has to involve behavior involving how you eat, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be an E followed by the letter D, right? Because there'd be no behavior behind it. So that's why I call it that. But it helps to frame what it is because that way people can understand in a different way, I guess, what I'm talking about. That is a major reason why people are fat because that can be really, really difficult to break. It can be a very difficult cycle to get out of. It can become something that you are so obsessed with that you cannot even process the idea of not doing that anymore. And that happens to a lot of people who are severe in that toxic ritualistic behavior. For other people, it could be something that happens less often or that is less extreme, but it could still keep them perhaps at a lower level of obesity, like morbid obesity or obesity in general. So, but usually when you're getting to super morbid obesity, it usually involves some level of severe quality. The other reason why is it could be a hormonal disorder that makes a person very, very hungry. This would be something like PCOS, which she did describe in the last episode. She has PCOS. Why does it make you hungry? Because it involves insulin resistance and it involves insulin issues, which create problems processing carbohydrate, which means you can't utilize it that well, which means that you're hungry, usually because you're storing it very quickly and you're not actually using it. So it makes you hungry, makes it easier to gain weight. The other aspects are hypothyroidism. That's a very common theme in supermorbid obesity, which involves your thyroid hormone either not being produced as much or in most cases, in my opinion, involve fatty liver, which affects your liver's rate of conversion of thyroid hormone. It has to be activated by the liver, and also other aspects like bad diet, bad lifestyle, things like environmental factors like chemicals. Like let's say you worked as a cleaner, that would make you more likely to be hypothyroid, right? Or let's say you never go out in the sun, that would make you more likely, right? So certain lifestyle factors, let's say you live in a very polluted area, that would be a lifestyle factor. So there's a lot of different reasons that can cause the hypothyroidism. And then if you are already bad, it can just put you over the edge. Now, what a lot of fat activists would say to that is, whatever, just deal with it, or that's just the way it has to be. No, there are things you can do to improve your situation, regardless of if it's diabetes, PCOS, hypothyroidism, things that tend to help you gain weight. You can address those issues. There are things to be done. And I will continually say it is lazy to not address hormonal problems. It is very lazy. And there really isn't anything we can say about it. Even if you can't work on it right this second, you should start a process towards working on it. You can always be in some kind of process. And if it's not even on your mind, then it is kind of lazy. I'm going to be honest. So, no. But anyways, those are usually the two reasons why somebody is huge. It can be physical, mental, or a lot of the time when you're really, really big, it can actually be both, which makes it even worse. So it is very difficult if it's both. I think in her case, it is both. We've heard her talk about her toxic ritualistic past, which I don't think is past, and she addressed that she has PCOS as well. So she has a combination of factors. So in her mind, it is perfectly impossible to lose weight. That's not true, though. It's a complete lie. Okay, so let's continue.
We are just like eating all the time.
Depending on how big you are, that is the truth. I'm sorry. Like, I will be the first one to talk about this and say, hey, I ate a lot. Okay, at my peak, I was eating 7,500 calories a day. I gained about 30 or 40 pounds in the span of 3 to 4 months in 2018. That was one of the worst spells I've ever had in my entire life. And it was really bad on so many levels. And it just created a cycle that was equally bad when it boomeranged around the other way, which I have to be careful of what I'm talking about on YouTube. But I lost a lot of weight very quickly in 2019, right? And struggled to keep it off and all this stuff. It was bad. But when I was in a massive overeating due to anxiety state, I was eating 7,500 calories a day. That's a lot of food, okay? So it's hard for me when people try to be like, I'm not really eating that much. You probably are. You probably are eating a lot. A lot of times you'll hear women say like, oh, well, I'm a woman, I'm shorter, like it's so much easier for me to overeat, blah, blah, blah. I do think that there is an aspect to that does make sense, but as a shorter woman, your appetite should be lower as well. So yeah, and I'd be hard pressed to find a short woman that was eating as much as I was at my peak. But that being said, still, if you're a short woman and you're having like 3,000 or 4,000 a day, it can be a lot, right? And I do think that that is possible. And that may be what's happening with someone like her. You know, it's really not that far out of the realm of possibility. And think about it. Let's say she's eating maybe 3,000. Maybe that would be around maintenance for her. So that would mean that she's not losing any weight. Maybe she's not gaining at the moment, but she's not losing any. So it's like, it's kind of like that. And again, I do think that she's probably actually hungry. But again, you have to address those hormonal issues because your hunger cues are not working correctly. But she doesn't have any desire to do that because to do so would be fat phobic, to do so would be wrong in some way, or again, it would require actual effort. But I would say that would be a realistic, in my opinion, that would be a realistic amount of calories she may be eating. That could potentially keep her at that size, especially if she has severe insulin resistance and she is eating very carb heavy, right? It could be a thing where you could gain a lot of weight doing that, for sure. So I think it's important to look at the whole picture on an individual basis. And that's why it is hard to make snap judgments of people on the fly. But that's what I would say is, yes, a lot of times they are eating a lot. The majority of fat people are eating a lot. It is what it is. They probably don't eat all day. A lot of people eat one meal a day. I've seen that very commonly. But it is a thing. So anyways.
Like nonstop eating. And that's not even true. And like, let's say it is, you know, like.
Let's say it is. Okay.
that is one reason why some people are fat, because they're overeating. Okay, and that's that. Like, that's okay. You know, people are deserving of like their rights and
What?
medical care and attention, no matter what they look like and whatever size they are.
And respect from other people.
Yeah, just general, like, just respect. But I think like there are so many reasons why people are fat. Genetics.
Look, it doesn't matter if you're respected or not. You're still going to be miserable if you're really fat. It just is a fact. I've always stated this. Like, it is amazing to me how much a lot of these people act like social factors matter that much, especially when you're at this size. There's no way. It doesn't. It does not matter as much. It just doesn't. I know, you know damn well she is struggling to sleep at night. She is struggling to fit in pretty much anything. She is having issues probably with night sweats, or she's feeling chill, like she's having chills, or she's this, or she's that, or she's struggling with breathing today, or she's having this problem. You know, it goes on and on and on. It is endless, but they will focus on the doctor's visit they go on once a month tops, or maybe once a year, or they'll focus on the comment that was made 2 years ago in public, or they'll focus on something that happened to them as a child. And it's like, hun, you're deflecting from your current physical health issues that you're having. Your migraines, your breathing issues, your temperature control issues, your mechanical issues, things like your knees, getting up and sitting down, and all these different things. You're ignoring all that. These are things that are hitting you in the face every single day at this size. And I do not believe her. If she were to say, oh no, I'm doing so well, I'm so healthy right now, I wouldn't believe her. I wouldn't. Again, she might be able to BS people that have never been that big, but I have been really, really big. It is a daily struggle, a minute by minute, hour by hour struggle. It is something where you cannot go longer than 10 minutes without thinking about how fat you are, because it is just in your face all the time. All the time. And they always talk about food noise. Let's talk about fat noise. Let's talk about all the fat noise that you have to drown out at every single moment because you're constantly feeling miserable and you're not paying attention to it because you're trying to block it out. So then you make it all about these social cues and stuff. I do think there are social issues in obesity, but when it comes to being this size, it's the last of your worries. It's the least of your problems. That's in other stages. That's like being morbidly obese or just obese. Then you're going to think a lot more about social stuff because the fat noise is quieter. You're not going to be caring that much at this size. I'm sorry. You're just not.
Play a big part. Obviously, depending on your ethnic background, you may be...
Okay, so she's then saying genetics. Genetics causing obesity that is a toxic ritualistic mindset. It's a belief that is not rooted in reality. It is wild. Any kind of genetic difference, it typically has to do with, we're talking on a difference of like 10 pounds. It has nothing to do with being 200 pounds overweight, 150 pounds overweight. They take this way too far. Way too far. Way too far. It can have to do with muscle density, bone density, things like that. They're not 200 pounds of a difference. It's not even close. It is laughable that she's bringing that up.
Considered fat, like we're talking about these Eurocentric, like, definitions of what thinness is versus fatness. So that might be something.
Yes. So you're trying to say that certain races are naturally 200 pounds heavier, which doesn't make any sense. I want you guys to all realize that that's what she's trying to say. It is a joke. It is ridiculous. It isn't even worth entertaining in your mind. It is a clownish statement. That's what that is. That's what that is. It's ridiculous. Okay.
Like maybe your family or where you come from, people are more curvaceous, more like what we consider to be fat. So that's
200 pounds overweight is not curvaceous. Okay. I'm going to keep saying that. Look at how big she is. I don't typically point out size like that, but I'm going to because this is gaslighting. She is gaslighting you. We're not talking about 10 to 15 pounds of a difference. If we were going there, I'd be like, okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. You're making me go there, girl. You know, this is the start of my brat era, and you're making me get real brat right now. Because I'm not saying it to shade your appearance or to say that you don't look good or whatever. It's not about that. It's about you are massively overweight. Massively. And you're not convincing me that certain races of people are supposed to be 100 pounds overweight, 150 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight. That doesn't make any sense. And we're not entertaining it. We just aren't.
the big thing too. A big reason that I think that a lot of people are fat is because we live in a fat phobic society. And I think
That doesn't make any sense either. But okay. If it was really that bad, then you wouldn't stay fat because guess what? You can change it. I think that we have a fat promotional society. We have a society that discourages weight loss. I've talked about this a lot. There are jealousy issues in weight loss. There are issues of people constantly sabotaging you, people at work, family members, friends, these kind of things. We have fat enforcement in our culture, especially in the United States. I've seen it a lot. I haven't always experienced it, but there have been moments where I have. I'm just brat, so I don't care. I do not care. I will still keep going because I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh gosh, my weight loss is bothering you. Oh no. No. But other people, they are nicer. They're more demure. They try to be mindful, right? They're going to be like, oh my gosh, you're not going to like me as much if I lose weight. Oh no, I better stop. And I feel for those people. I really do. You know, it's like, gosh, like why is society putting these pressures on us to stay this big? We have the opposite situation to what you're saying. The opposite. I bet you if you tried to lose weight right now and say, you know what, I want to lose weight, you would get massive hate. And you'd have a lot of people pissed at you for saying that. How many people are that pissed at what she's saying right now? Probably not nearly as much as she would get if she were to switch sides. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And they just completely ignore that side of the equation. And like I said, I'm not even just talking about fat acceptance on the internet. I'm talking about people in real life that do stuff like that or that get upset over people losing weight. We have the opposite of what she's saying. At least here in America, it's the opposite. That's why it's getting worse and worse and worse.
I think that actually creates like a lot of food insecurity, a lot of body shame, a lot of trauma. And this is like maybe a controversial take, but I don't think that the majority of fat people, until you learn about body liberation.
She's saying that fat phobia causes food insecurity. That doesn't make any sense. Because have you ever heard so many people say, and I will actually agree with this, people say when you fat shame somebody, and I will say in parentheses, somebody with a toxic ritualistic behavioral issue, they will take that anxiety and channel it into a spell, so to speak. It can be a trigger, which in that case, it isn't actually helping the issue when you fat shame somebody. But by definition of that experience, that means that that person doesn't have food insecurity because they have food to go eat because of the anxiety. So that doesn't make any sense. You cannot gain weight if you have food insecurity. That doesn't make any sense. We need to process what she just said and see how ridiculous it is. That is one of the most ludicrous statements I've ever heard.
And body positivity. But as a fat person myself, no fat person wants to be fat in this world. Like, no one would choose to continue to be fat in a world where they absolutely hate fat people. People think
this statement is complicated. It's very complicated because I think what people don't understand when they make broad statements like this, think of it this way. Let's say there's the part of you that doesn't want to be fat. Then there's the part of you that would have to take the actions to not be fat. You cannot want both of those things. But if you don't want to take the actions, then you're going to stay fat. It's still a choice. If you really, really, really don't want to be fat, then you're going to take the action to not be. Does that make sense? It's like in balance. We're in Libra season, right? It's a balance. It's like a scale. So whatever you want less, or whatever you hate more, or whatever you don't want to be involved in, or whatever you're more willing to put up with, aka being fat or doing the behaviors and steps to not being fat, whatever you want to do less, you're not going to do. So I don't want to be fat. So I'm going to take the steps to lose the weight. Because even though I don't always want to count calories or always want to go to the gym or want all these things, I still want to not be fat more. So I'm going to take those actions. You cannot want two things at the same time. It's all about priorities. And they're not using she's not using any kind of nuance there. She's acting like you have to 100% want something or 100% not want something. That's not true. It isn't true.
think that I'm glorifying obesity by spreading the word and like telling everybody about this
The word to her pseudo religion.
information. Trust me, I wouldn't recommend anybody be fat in this world. It is horrible.
Okay, let's just leave it there. That should have been the whole podcast, and I would have agreed with her, and I'd been like, you know what? That was a good statement. Because I agree with that. But let's see what else she says.
It is so traumatizing. It is so isolating. People are
Well, isn't it a great thing that we don't have to do it then? Isn't that amazing?
evil. They are cruel.
See, she makes it about other people. So it has nothing to do with her health issues. Let's look at this deflection.
Like a lot of food insecurity, a lot of body shame, a lot of trauma.
I went too far back,
Would
sorry.
choose to continue to be fat in a world where they absolutely hate fat people. People think that I'm glorifying obesity by spreading the word and like telling everybody about this information. Trust me, I wouldn't recommend anybody be fat in this world. It is horrible. It is so traumatizing. It is so isolating. People are evil. They are cruel. Strangers think it's okay to tell you on the bus, you're fat, you should lose weight, you're disgusting. Like, it's nonstop. And that leads to people isolating themselves and like seeking comfort through food.
We need to normalize fat people.
I think what is never acknowledged in these conversations, though, is how often that actually occurs. Is it that it's happening on a day-to-day basis, or is it that it happened once or twice in the past 5 years and you never stop thinking about it? Because I guarantee you it's much more often going to be the second thing, where they're ruminating about something that happened that isn't that often. You're not going to go through life without anything ever happening to you. You have to develop some kind of resilience. And I understand that when you are super morbidly obese, it doesn't put you in a good mental state. You can be in a very fragile state mentally because you are struggling. Your body is struggling to survive. You're in a fight or flight response at all moments. So I understand why that can be hard to process. But I'm telling you, if you would just lose the weight, if you would lose some of the weight, you'd be surprised at how much easier it is to be resilient at certain passing comments or something from a stranger. Like, we don't have to act like something like that is like a deep, super deep betrayal from somebody. It just isn't on that level. It's like having a comment about, you should probably lose some weight. It does not cut as deep as like being cheated on. And that's what she's acting like with the emotional pitch of what she's saying. It's not that extreme. It may feel that extreme, but that's because your body is in an extreme state. And that's what makes these conversations really, really, really tricky, because you have a lot of people like these two who will listen to what she just said and be like, yeah, that fever pitch totally makes sense. Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Imagine feeling like you were just cheated on because somebody said, you really should consider losing some weight. Is that really that offensive? Like, think about it. Is that really that hurtful? You get what I'm saying? I understand people being rude and it being unpleasant, but rude and unpleasant behavior is more similar to road rage. Like, you don't ruminate about road rage for years. It's just a moment in time where you're like, then you flip off the person. That's all it is. It's a moment. That's what a rude comment is. Someone says you're disgusting. It's like road rage. It's like, well, you're disgusting. I don't know. Or you just say something weird back, or just be like, who are you to judge? Or what are you, I don't know. I can't think of anything right now, but I don't even think I would respond if somebody said that to me. I'd just be like, it depends. Because I usually don't like things. I don't want things to get physical. So I usually probably wouldn't say something in public. But if I did, I'd be like, well, it's a good thing I'm not here for your viewing. I can't even talk right now. Oh my gosh. See, I probably would just shut up right now because I'm not really on my A game right now. But I probably would say something like, it's a good thing I'm not here for your viewing pleasure then, isn't it? Or I don't give a fuck. That's an easy one. I don't give a fuck what you think. What can somebody say to that? You get what I'm saying? It's like, that's what it should be like. It's not this deep betrayal. It just isn't. It ain't like that. You're being too extra about it.
Existing in every space possible, right? Especially places like the gym. Like, if you see somebody that's bigger body at the gym, when I see something like that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, wow. I think that we glorify people who are like super ripped and jacked and like all the stuff that they're able to do, but it's like, yes, that takes a lot of hard work. Of course, absolutely, you got there. Look at all your skills. Good for you. You're amazing. But when you're in a bigger body, do you know how much extra work it takes to do half of the shit?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
This is kind of on period. This is kind of true. I would say it can be difficult mentally and physically at the same time. I don't think that anybody is, I don't think somebody who's fit is not admirable for being in shape. I don't agree with that, which I'm not saying she does either. I think it's admirable, but I do think it's also admirable to push past that feeling of resistance or that anxiety or awkward feeling and go to the gym when you're not an expert. Because everybody who goes to the gym, they start out as being a beginner. And you just have to understand it from that perspective. Because I used to feel horrifically awkward going to the gym. I'd go in the midnight. In the middle of the night, I go then. In the middle of the night. I still kind of do because I like it, because I'm just introverted. But I will go earlier in the day if I have to. Like, it doesn't bother me anymore. But there was a time when it did bother me, and you just find ways to make it work for you. And it's a lot of exposure therapy. It's just dealing with anxiety, right? Pushing past it, that kind of stuff is tricky. I get it. I always advise people to err on the side of not doing anything, because a lot of people who are super fat going to the gym, they just don't want any attention. They want to just go in, go out, and not really have anything. Now, if you're like super charismatic and you're like totally going to have a moment, then maybe you can make it work, right? That isn't me. So I'm going to steer clear. But, you know, it would just be the typical things of if they have a question or, oh, how do I adjust this machine so I can sit there? Like, I've helped somebody like that. That's not a big deal. You just help really quick and you just go on about your day. Like, you try to just be gracious, which most people are at the gym. It is a stereotype, you know, maybe unless you're going to like Equinox or something. I don't know. I go to Planet Fatness, so it's not really, it ain't really clout like that there. So I guess I would suggest it maybe if you were super fat to just go there, because it doesn't have that like kind of bougie connotation or like only the hot people go here. Like, it doesn't really have that vibe at all. So that's where I would start, basically, which I know a lot of people probably don't like me to say that for some reason, because Planet Fatness is like very polarizing, but it is like accessible for a very fat person. Like, it really is, it's kind of a gay gym, to be honest. It's kind of gay. So it's not really going to be that big of a thing if you're going there. It just isn't. Like, I personally, first of all, I don't have the money, but I would not go somewhere like Equinox right now. I just wouldn't do that, because it would be like, you know, and gosh, probably would just be a bunch of mean gays there anyway. I'm just kidding. Probably not here in Alabama, but I'm just saying, okay, there's a connotation, okay? So I would understand that, which I don't even know if people know what that is, but I think it's like a bougie gym in like LA or something. Maybe maybe it's in other areas. I don't know anything, okay? I've just heard of it. It's bougie. And it would be like, they would be mad probably if you were fat and you were going there, in my opinion. But it's context based. So what I'm saying is, most of the time it's going to be fine. In conclusion, I kind of went on too long about that, but regardless, most of the time it's going to be fine.
Pushing yourself so much more. I think it takes a lot of like strength and courage, and
certainly internal, yes,
mental as well, not just physical.
That's what I want to say
right?
too. Like, just getting into that space.
Yeah.
You deserve like an award.
What I see is like, yes, you did a lot of work.
I don't know that you deserve an award, but it is admirable. Absolutely. In my opinion, it is admirable. Just as somebody who's completely dedicated and is going and is in great shape, that is also admirable, right? Like, we can admire different things for different reasons, because it does take a certain amount of internal strength to start going to the gym. It just does. It's true.
Work to get here, but now that you're here, it's so easy for you, right? Like, it's actually super easy for you at this point. For the bigger person that's doing the same run that you're doing, it's so much harder, and they're doing it. Like, that's amazing. We should celebrate that.
Well, this is the hypocrisy of fat phobia that drives me off the rails. Is that...
Okay, let's see what this is.
You are just hated for being fat, period. You cannot win.
Yeah.
And people actually will...
I don't know. See, this is tough. This is really, really, really tough, because I don't know that it's usually for being fat, period. Yes, there can be comments. Yes, there can be comments on what you're eating. Yes, there could be comments on eating so fast, things like that. That's true. But being hated, think about the word hate. Hate is pretty strong. Most of the time when somebody hates you, fatness is not usually the reason. Fatness is just the quickest and easiest weapon that they're going to use. Typically, it's a bit more personal than that. And a lot of people don't want to say that, because it can be a hit to the ego, because it can be, honestly, this person probably just really hates you or doesn't like you as a person. And it wouldn't matter if you were thin tomorrow. They still wouldn't like you, probably for some other reason or some deeper reason than being fat. Fatness is skin deep as far as how other people perceive you. It's not skin deep in terms of health consequences, but it's not that. There isn't like the greatest stigma in the world when it comes to fatness. There have never been laws segregating fat people away from other people. There have never been, I don't want to say it, but genocides based on fatness. There's never been these extreme levels of bigotry and hatred on a systemic level, where it's not even just systemic, but societal, where we are literally in like these striatas and all this stuff. It has never been to that extent. The biggest complaint you have is the medical system sucks, which guess what? It probably is going to suck even if you're thin. There's still, again, that's a whole other issue that, yes, we need to talk about and stuff, but it is not completely tied to fatness. You're still probably going to have issues at the doctor, even if you're thin. Or the other issue of less people want to date you. I'm sorry, but less people wanting to date you is not exactly a give me liberty or give me death moment. It isn't that dramatic. It's not that big of a deal. Especially when you're comparing it to the physical problems of being super morbidly obese. You are going to deal with those issues on a day-by-day basis, day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute. You're going to deal with the issues of it. And you don't have to. You do not have to do it. That's the thing. It's a self-inflicted wound. You don't have to do it. You don't have to deal with it. And that is what you're going to be dealing with way more than any social stigma or quote unquote systemic issue in regard to fatness. It's never been as bad as other things, and it never will be. It is ridiculous to even compare it to something like that, which they do all the time. But I digress.
Say that they are doing this to you to make you come to and lose the weight. But what they're
That's not actually true most of the time. Most of the time, it's just a matter of it's an easy weapon against you, and it's an easy way to feel superior to you. That's what it is. It's a competition. It's a competitive thing, which I do think it's toxic. Oftentimes people who use that, they have their own toxic ritualistic mindsets or behaviors going on. It is really bad. But I think that those mental health issues, they're probably a lot more common, or at least the belief systems and the mindsets behind those mental health issues are especially common in today's society, which is a huge issue. But it's not the same as the systemic oppression of fat people. Most of the issues on a societal level in regard to fatness are cultural issues, which is very different. So like widespread toxic ritualistic mindsets, or as I used to call it, E followed by the letter D mindsets, ideas that people have like obesity is genetic. That's a belief that many, many people have in our society. That is very negative. That is extremely negative when it comes to the issue of obesity and being fat and fatness. That a lot of people agree with that statement, or a lot of people believe that statement. That is a toxic ritualistic mindset. It's not real. That's a huge issue. So people that have those problems or those mindsets, they will be more likely to attack you on the basis of size.
actually doing is keeping you fat, making you more fat. If fat phobics actually cared about our
Fat phobics, I cannot believe she calls it that.
health and our well-being, they would be doing what you're saying. They'd be celebrating us.
Yeah.
But what they do is they make fun of us at the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they videotape
Some do, but most people don't.
us. You get made fun
But
of.
a lot of people don't. How many people are left alone? How many people aren't videotaped? How many people aren't made fun of? How many people don't make fun of somebody? You can't just focus on examples. There's always going to be bad actors in any situation.
At the gym, people stare at you. It's like, isn't this exactly where you want me to be?
Yeah. You can't win with
I
people.
should enter and you should put on a crown on my.
That's a little too much. That's ridiculous. It just shouldn't be that big of a deal. And again, I think a lot of people have this sort of mindset, the cultural mindset, that a fat person should not be active or cannot be active. Like, it's like you're breaking a cognitive code, or like you're causing cognitive dissonance. It shouldn't be like that. So I do think we do need to normalize people moving their bodies, even if they're very big. And to a certain extent, that is one aspect of body positivity as a movement that has been incredibly positive, is it has normalized a lot of people seeing fat people being active. That is something I can get behind, and that is a benefit. One of few, I will say, but that is definitely a benefit.
Head, because this is where you want me to be. This is where they all say, get your ass to the gym.
But you know what the shitty thing is, that they want you to be there, but also don't talk to me until you're super thin. Like, until...
Don't talk to me in what way? Like, don't talk to me romantically. Don't talk to me as a friend. Don't this, don't that. A lot of people at the gym, they don't want to be talked to, period. That's just kind of like an unwritten code. People are there on business. Like, for me, I typically do not want to be talked to at the gym. I don't. So I don't know if that's what she means. If she means like romantically, that's a person's prerogative. If she means like friendship wise, I would think that's a bit much. But again, you're not entitled to anybody's friendship. So it is what it is.
That point, all of your experience, all of the times that you go to the gym, all of those are like invalid, not good enough. Like, keep trying harder. You suck, until you get to that final destination where they want you to be at, as this like super thin, whatever. Then it's like, okay, now we'll celebrate you. Now you did it. But it's like, no, like...
Not necessarily. A lot of you guys have been very, very supportive of my journey as I've lost weight. I started doing anti-fat acceptance activism really in 2023, in January of that year. And since I took that approach on YouTube and really took on that cause, so to speak, and really moved forward in that, I have gotten so much celebration throughout different progress in different points throughout the journey. And I'm not super thin. I'm still not super thin. But so many of you guys are so happy that I'm now out of morbid obesity. I've experienced a lot of celebration and positivity and happiness over reaching milestones and goals throughout the journey. So I don't agree with this person. I would say that there are people who can be jealous or bitter or weird, which is a big thing. But there are also people who believe in it and who are helpful. And sometimes they always go on and on about how former fats are like the worst people ever. But honestly, some of the most helpful, supportive comments I've gotten on this channel are from people who were formerly fat. It's been some of the most diehard support, and it's been very valuable to me, extremely valuable. So it's like, I think they're only looking at the bad in a situation. It's never 100% bad or good. It never is. I think I've always said this, super morbid obesity, it promotes black and white mindsets that are not good. They're not right. They're not correct. And I understand it. It's because you are in a survival state. And when you're in a survival state, the reptilian part of your brain cannot sit there and look at gray areas and nuance every day. It has to go to black and white for survival. And that's the unfortunate part of that's one of the most unfortunate parts of being super morbidly obese, is that your brain is locked in that mindset the entire time. And so you can't see things. And then this person is trying to be nice and trying to be understanding and trying to be demure. And it's not helpful. You have to give somebody a reality check. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be mean about it. But you can't give somebody credit where it isn't deserved. And that's what a lot of nice people do. And it's a problem. It's why I'm a proud brat, because I'm not going to do that for you. I'm just not. If you say something that is so stupid, like, I'm not going to go on a tirade and try to justify what you said or act like I agree with what you said. It's not true. What she's saying here is not true. People don't just support you until, when you're really thin. That's not true. That's a perception, but it's more so that people don't know where you've come from and people don't know where you're going in public. They only can judge you in a snap judgment of where you're at the moment. That's fine. I had somebody at the gym that he thought that I was just starting to go and I've already lost over 100 pounds. And he was like, oh, I haven't seen you here very often. And, and I was like, no, I come here often. I've been coming for over a year. Kind of thing. I kind of had a little bit of an Anna O'Brien moment. But I didn't cry about it after because I'm like, I get it. It's a reality check. It's a little deflating. It's like I don't look like I go to the gym, but I do. It doesn't matter if I look like I do. I do. The muscle is still there. The muscle is still muscling. It's still there. It doesn't matter if somebody else perceives it. The reality is still there. I still have the hormonal benefits of it. I still have the satiety from it. I still have a better ability to process carbohydrates because of it. I still have a better testosterone balance because of it. I still have all the benefits of having the muscle, even if somebody doesn't perceive it, because it doesn't matter. And I still know it's there. I'm still stronger. I can still flex my bicep and see that it exists, even if it's under a layer of fat. I can still see it if I want to. I know it's there. Just think about it a little differently.
Now it's like pretty easy now. It's all of the time before that was hard. That was the hard.
It depends on how in shape you are. I'm going to go ahead and end it here, but it depends on how in shape you are. I have been watching my friend Eric. He is trying to lose, I think, around 10 to 15 pounds from a pretty lean place. I think he's about 12% body fat, something like that. And he's trying to lose like 10 pounds. He's like, I don't know, he's going to kill me if he ever watches this and I'm wrong, but oops, sorry. But I think he's around 195-ish, something like that. And he's trying to get to 180. And he has to go to the gym and he has to work out very hard. He does very difficult workouts and they're pretty long and it's 5 to 6 days a week. Like it's a journey. It's a lot of work. I go and I do full body twice a week. I put an average amount of effort at the gym. He's putting a more elite level of activity at the gym. It's tough and he's in a deficit and he's going to the gym that much and he's doing all these things because he's trying to minimize muscle loss. It's difficult at that level. Like, let's not play. It's tough. His workouts are a lot harder than mine. And I can still continue to lose with an average lifting schedule. I can still lose because I'm obese. It's different than being thin and trying to tone up. It's different. It's hard. So I understand it. Now, I'm always one for health. I do not support, getting super lean in an unhealthy way. I do not ever support that. I will not support it. It can still cause hormonal problems. You can still give yourself hypothyroidism. There's all these things that can still happen when you're overtraining or doing too much or under eating or whatever. There's all this stuff. You can get muscles and super lean in an unhealthy way or you can do it in a healthy way. I'm going to support the healthy way no matter what. But what I'm saying is, it is more difficult. It is admirable because it's a lot of effort. It's difficult to get abs. And as somebody who goes to the gym regularly and who has gone, I understand how hard it is. So I actually admire it a little bit more now than I did before because I don't work that hard. And guess what? Next year, to get to my goals, I probably will have to work that hard. I'm not trying to discount the mental difficulties or the internal fortitude to start going to the gym at a super morbidly obese place. I think it's incredible, but it's a different kind of incredible. And being in shape is a different kind of incredible from that. It's a different kind of difficulty. It's technical difficulty. It's workout difficulty. It's athleticism. It's all these things. I don't want to take away that person's accomplishment or the effort that they're putting in. And we don't have to take away the effort of the super morbidly obese person either. They can both be putting in a lot of effort. Okay? Not everything is a competition. Sometimes things are just different, but they can both be impressive at the same time. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back next week with another episode of this, and I'll be back in general. So have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. Peace. Bye.